I say it's more than just the government.
All right, okay. So I agree with that, but why in 2008, July, we still don't have appropriate legislation or institutional capability to facilitate this process? After all these years of talking about globalization and the consequences and the benefits and the costs, we need explanations for these things.
Well, one thing I can proffer is that indeed we have made quite a few strides in the last couple of years. We have liberalized the telecoms environment. There are a number of competitors in now. There are more cell phones in the country than there are people. There are a number of cable stations, a number of 34 radio stations. There are a number of dynamics that have been happening. You would have seen broadband with Flow and Triple Play and TSTT's Blink, etc. So there are accelerating developments in the market, so that it is not as though we are at scratch. We have done quite a bit, and that's part of what the series will talk about, give people an awareness of the things that are happening. I don't think that, in fact, I know that people are not aware of those developments, and that's part of the reason why our international rankings are so low, because people are not aware, and when they get asked questions from the international surveys, they base their response on what they know.
There's a gentleman whose name I can't recall at the moment, but I'm listening to you, gentleman here, who was a minister of trade in a former Venezuelan government before Chavez came to power. And he's written a book on the way globalization has encouraged, has facilitated criminal activity. I know after 9/11, a lot of the banking rules and regulations had come under severe scrutiny to sort of undermine the ability of money laundering and gun running and drug trafficking and all like that. To what extent your roundtable is focusing on these kinds of issues, which must come up if you're going to be getting more involved in ICT and e-commerce?
Well, let me say, Morgan, that in fact there is a strategic plan, fast forward, for taking the entire nation forward in the area of ICT, right? And in fact, what you're alluding to is a small piece of that whole, that whole construct that we have to deal with, right? So that, for example, as Atiba alluded to, we had to deal with things like the interconnect and the liberalization of the telecoms market. For example, the question of interconnect between Digicel and TSTT was an issue, and the government turned to the e-business roundtable to help with that process of trying to mediate that issue, and it was successfully resolved, so that now you can text between TSTT and we also and Digicel, and we're also dealing with the issue of co-location to try and of towers and so on. So all of those issues are happening. For example, another big project is to bring online many of the government agencies, many of the government services. For example, that is why you can now start applying for your birth certificate and your passport and that kind of thing online. So there are a whole lot of things going on, and right now there's another big project going on to help to integrate the facilities of all the agencies together so that you can easily get information on individuals. And that brings us then to the point you were asking. Because if we can identify you as an individual online and easily, many things can happen automatically. For example, banking services, as you're talking about, for example. We in the banking industry want to know that you are who you claim you are. Because there are things like, for example, automated loan machines that we could bring on into play. You have automatic teller machines. In the banking sector, you could bring an automated loan machine. The person just simply goes in, keys in how much he wants for the loan. The machine goes to a central database, confirms that you are the person that you say you are, right? And then it does your credit score for you, determine how much you can borrow, and actually can even make a decision to lend you more. For example, when they work your credit score out, they can go to a central database, check your credit rating, go to another database and check to make sure you don't have any criminal record or anything like that. And based on your credit rating, based on your income, because they could verify from your employer and so on, right? What they can say is, listen, Mr. Job, the machine will come back and say, well, look, we have scored you for 20,000, you only asked for 10. Would you like us to credit the other 10 to your credit card? right? You say yes or no on the machine, and then you sign, right? The area that we have to deal with is the legislation to allow you to be able to take the electronic signature, right? But those are some areas that are being dealt with, right? But that is an area where e-business and being online and having all the facilities online that you can verify an individual's bona fides and so on and know who he is can help us to reduce money laundering, because we can check a number of databases to make sure you're who you say you are, and can facilitate and make your life more convenient in terms of the businesses and the services that you're trying to get automatically and online very easily.
I'm glad you make these explanations, because